Hello and welcome back. Today we will be covering real property. I'm here with Jonathan Grossman, MBE expert and AdaptiBar video lecturer, and he will be providing tips and strategies for some of the topics that we see students struggling with the most often within real property.
Hey, Jacob, how you doing? Good to be with the rest of you guys to talk about property. Don't worry. We're not going to talk about water rights. We're not talking about future interests. Nobody cares about that stuff. Like always here at AdaptiBar, we're going to keep it practical, concise, and give you some practical tips for how to improve on some property questions without worrying about the minutia. Everything's going to be okay. Property is, again, like the rest of the subjects. Some rules and a little bit of reading comp, and you'll see how quick you can improve.
Thank you for the intro, Jonathan, and I will let you get.
So, a lot of the lectures that you watch, unlike mine, but most of the lectures that you watch are going to begin and emphasize things like future interests. Most of us didn't learn a lot of property in first or second year, and when they start off a lecture with future interests or water rights, oh my God, they've already lost most of the people there. Out of the 27 property questions, there's very few of the weird things that the whole country is worried about. What's a fee simple subject to executory springing, subject to a fee tail? I don't know what a fee tail is. Thank God I don't have a tail, so I don't care. I'm focusing on definitions because all I want to do is pass the bar exam. That's all I want to do. I want to get a couple of more questions right than wrong. And that's from knowing the rules I can know and not worrying about the minutia. So no one should be out there spending 9 hours on a Saturday on future interests. I'll talk quickly about how to do that and get a few right. Property is difficult. Yes, I actually think, though, it's much easier than a lot of other subjects, because if I know the core basic rules, if I know what the hypo is talking about, if I focus on my issue spotting, they're actually giving me a bunch of these questions. But we're intimidated because when we see Greenacre, we run in the other direction. I'm here to reinforce the fact that property is only testing you on the simple black letter definitions. And even when you don't know what the definition is or you forgot, if you're just focusing on the facts, issue spotting, what is the hypo about, the answer will generally fall into your lap. Some of the subjects, though, in property, like other subjects on the MBE, look the same. And therefore, again, people tend to mush a lot of these concepts together. If you know anything about me, you know I'm trying to keep everything separate. So, for example, many people confuse the real estate contract and the deed as one big transaction. And yet there are separate rules for the real estate contract and separate rules for the deed, for the conveyance. For a valid conveyance, if you were writing an essay, you would be talking about delivery and acceptance and legal description and identifiable grantees. There's, again, the 6 or 7 elements you need for a valid conveyance. And on an essay, you just vomit it all down on the piece of paper. But on MBE, as John likes to say, each one of those elements gets its own MBE question. You're thinking macro, and I'm saying think micro. Just like the other topics, each one of these property questions is just testing you on one little rule. The hypos can be long. They can be densely written. What do I say about all that? The longer the hypo, the easier the answer is going to be. Why? The longer the hypo is, the more BS they included in the facts. They don't expect you to chart out on an essay, does every syllable of every word possibly mean something? Sure. On MBE, most of the facts are garbage. Every one of these property hypos comes down to a sentence or two that will tell you what it's all about. That's all you got to worry about. So even if you forget some of the rules, as long as you're focusing on your issue spotting, you'll be able to determine whether the question is about identifiable grantee or the legal description of the land. Similarly, easements, covenants, the rights in land, easement, covenant, license, profit. It's all a big blur. They usually put all 4 of those names in the answer choices, and that's why people are choosing between 2. But if you know what a license looks like, if you know what a profit looks like, if you know what a covenant looks like, and you spent a little more time up here, the correct answer will fall into your lap. Even with future interests, not the weird stuff. I'm talking the stuff you need and should know. Life estate, fee simple determinable, fee simple subject to condition subsequent. These are not that difficult by themselves. They each have a little definition. There's a couple of buzzwords you need to know. What's one problem? A lot of the interests names begin with R. Remainder, reversion, possibility of reverter, right of reentry. It looks the same. They each go with a different interest. This goes with this. So you take nice and slow in your notes and you say, okay, if he has a life estate, the grantor has a reversion. The name of the thing after the life estate is a remainder. That's very simple, but you need to say it and just keep it straight. Okay, so life estate, reversion, remainder. Fee simple determinable, that's the possibility of reverter. Don't talk about 20 words, talk about one or two. The grantee has this, the grantor has that. Add one or two, three or four, five or six. If you just know 6 or 7 or 8 basic definitions, I know which interest goes with whom. Oh my God, I'm going to be able to get a couple of these extra questions right. And all of a sudden I'm doing pretty well in property, even though I don't know the weird version of the RAP rule. How can a 98-year-old woman, the so-called octogenarian, have a kid and you got to worry about the lives and being? Who the hell knows? We're all bad at math. That's why we went to law school. I'm not going to figure out the lives and being right now, but to get my 60-ish% in property, which would be fantastic relative to doing better in the other subjects, but if I'm just near 60% in property, I'm okay. That's from getting more of these questions right that I can. Then a week or two before the bar, you want to spend a Saturday morning on the weird stuff in property. Great, I'm proud of you. Knock yourself out. We all want you to get as many questions correct as possible. But how do I pass? How do I get enough questions that I feel confident? Go back to basics. Know that if I know the basic bare bone rule and I spend more time in the facts, issue spotting, property is one of those subjects, where you get very little help from the call of the question. They don't tell you what the name of the issue is here. That's all issue spotting. So focus more on, is this about this? Is this about that? What is the hypo about? Every law student in America got a JD because they can do one thing really well, issue spot. Don't be intimidated by how long the hypo is. Say, I will know what really is going on there, which means I know what I'm looking for. Separate the closely related concepts, contract deed, easement covenant, fee simple determinable, life estate, and know that they're just testing you on the basic rules. And if you know what you found in the hypo, and you know that you're going to shut up and pick the most specific answer to whatever that hypo is about, you'll do better than you even believe in property. Don't assume they're trying to get you. You take control and say, I could know the basic core rules. I can focus on the facts. And even if I'm not a property expert, even mortgages, I'm not trying to be a mortgage broker. I'm just trying to know some definitions and then spot which rule of mortgages they're talking about. If you flip property around and say, I'm not going to worry about the 40%, let me get the 60% I can. Don't be intimidated by the hypo. The longer it is, the more minutia there is, and I can focus on basic rules and issue spotting, and I trust what I'm reading. You'll be shocked how well you're going to do on property, and I encourage you to stay that confident. That's what you need when you do those property questions.
Amazing as always, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us. And again, as always, feel free to learn more from Jonathan at the AdaptiBar video lecture series. These are available by individual subject or together as a discounted bundle as you need. Thank you again for watching, and we wish you the best of luck.
Don't be intimidated by property. If you know anything about me, my number one mantra is you got to be confident on these questions. Even if you're faking the confidence, you got to act confident. And you just say to yourself, I'm going to know enough rules. I'm going to focus on those facts. I'm going to shut up and pick the most specific answer, and you'll surprise yourself how well you'll do even on those green acre questions. Go get them.